So I'm going to read just a little bit, in the interest of time, from the beginning of the novel, May We Be Forgiven, if that's okay. Please. And I'll leave the electron microscope. No, it's okay. It's pointless anyway. It's all conceptual. Okay. May we be forgiven. An incantation, a prayer, the hope that somehow I come out of this alive. Was there ever a time you thought, I'm doing this on purpose, I'm fucking up, and I don't know why? Do you want my recipe for disaster? The warning sign. Last year, Thanksgiving at their house. 20 or 30 people at tables spreading from the dining room into the living room, stopping abruptly at the piano bench. He was at the head of the table, picking turkey out of his teeth, talking about himself. I kept watching him as I went back and forth carrying plates into the kitchen, the edges of my fingers dipping into unnameable goo, cranberry sauce, sweet potato, cold pearl onion, gristle. With every trip back and forth from the dining room to the kitchen, I hated him more. Every sin of our childhood, beginning with his birth, came back. He entered the world 11 months after me, sickly at first, not enough oxygen along the way, and was given far too much attention. And then, despite what I repeatedly tried to tell him about how horrible he acted as though he believed he was a gift of the gods. They named him George. Geo, he liked to be called, like that was something cool, scientific, analytical. Geode, I called him, like a sedimentary rock. By the time we were 10 and 11, he was taller than me, broader, stronger. Are you sure he's not the butcher's boy? My father would ask jokingly, and no one laughed. I was bringing in heavy plates and platters, casseroles caked with the debris of dinner, and no one noticed that help was needed. Not George, not his 2 children, not his ridiculous friends who were in fact in his employ, among them a weather girl and assorted spare anchormen and women who sat stiff-backed, hair-sprayed like Ken and Barbie, and not my Chinese-American wife Claire, who hated turkey and never failed to remind us that her family used to celebrate with roast duck and sticky rice. George's wife Jane had been at it all day, cooking, cleaning, serving, and was now scraping bones into a giant trash bin. Jane scoured the plates, piling dirty dishes one on top of the other, dropping the slimy silver into a sink of steaming water. Glancing at me, she brushed her hair away with the back of her hand and smiled. I went back for more. I looked at their children and imagined them dressed as pilgrims in black buckle shoes, doing pilgrim children chores, carrying buckets of milk like human oxen. Nathaniel, 12, and Ashley, 11, sat like lumps at the table, hunched, or more like curls as if poured into their chairs, truly spineless, eyes focused on their small screens, the only thing in motion, their thumbs. One texting friends no one had ever seen, the other killing digitized terrorists. In the background, 2 televisions loudly competed for no one's attention, one featuring football, the other the film Mighty Joe Young. You know, I'm a company man, heart and soul. I'm the network's president of entertainment. I am ever aware 24/7, George said. There's a television in every room. The fact is, George can't bear to be alone, not even in the bathroom. The turkey platter was at the center of the table. I reached over my wife's shoulder and lifted. The tray was heavy and wobbled, and I willed myself to stay strong and carry out the mission while balancing a casserole with Brussels sprouts and bacon in the crook of my other arm. The turkey was an heirloom bird, whatever that means, but it had been rubbed, herbed, relaxed into submission, into thinking it wasn't so bad to be decapitated and stuffed up the ass with breadcrumbs and cranberries in some annual rite. The bird had been raised with a goal in mind, an actual date. I stood in the kitchen picking at the carcass while Jane did the dishes, bright blue gloves on up to her elbows in suds. My fingers were deep in the bird, the hollow body still warm, the best bits of stuffing packed in. I dug with my fingers and brought stuffing to my lips. Jane looked at me, my mouth moist, greasy, my fingers curled into what would have been the turkey's G-spot if they had such things. She lifted her hands out of the water and came towards me to plant one on me. Not friendly. The kiss was serious, full of desire. It was terrifying and unexpected. She did it, then snapped off her gloves and walked out of the room. Dessert was served. Jane asked if anyone wanted coffee and went back into the kitchen. I followed her like a dog, wanting more. She ignored me. Are you ignoring me? I asked. She said nothing and handed me the coffee. Could you let me have a little pleasure, a little something that's just for myself? She paused. Cream and sugar? It's an aperitif.
Yes, well, this is the great tradition of the family.
Yes.
The family reveal all. the family reveal all occasion.
All families do reveal all. That's the.
Is that your experience? Mine never said a word to anybody.
Isn't that so revealing?
Well, we want to know what happens actually.
Well, what happens? It's that's just the beginning. There's a horrible moment coming soon where George is kind of a head case. He's this network president of entertainment. He's a man who's, I would say, alternately fat and thin. He has a whole closet full of suits of different sizes. He's alternately a drug addict and then not. And he's in a sort of an accident, a bad accident, and some people are killed. And it's not clear if it really was an accident or George just thought a red light didn't apply to him. And while he's in the hospital, Harry accidentally sleeps with Jane, and of course George comes home. And then what to me was always interesting is that George kills Jane, not Harry. And it's really a novel, and it takes off from there. I'm not giving anything away, because it's just a few pages from now. And then it becomes this rollicking black comedy about family life and Richard Nixon.
Oh, Nixon. That's always that's
Nixon's
funny.
Deeply
He's very funny.
Yes. Harold is a Nixon scholar who's fired because professors in colleges are more thinking that history is more future forward, not so interested in the past.
Well, one thing I also wanted to ask Christian and wanted to ask everybody in different ways, the translation. I mean, you write in English, this is in English, but you translate your work into many genres. And so so you do all these different forms of writing.
Right.
And it's partly about roots and identity and various other things. How does your voice change? I mean, you've been translated into millions of languages.
Sure.
Can you read yourself in any of the languages that you've been translated into? Not really.
No, but the funny thing is that truthfully, from the very beginning, and I've been writing since I was 19, so my first novel, Jack, won a German Literature Prize that had only previously been won by people named Josef, I think, actually. There was no AM anywhere in the history of that. And to me, the foreign translations have actually meant more than the American publications because it means that the work has meaning and resonance in other countries, in other cultures, in other languages, and that to me is incredible. We had one with the book that this book will save your life. Other people call it the donut book because a lot of countries had donuts on the cover. And in Korea, they wanted to put a Dunkin' Donut coupon in the book. And Andrew Wiley, who's someone, the Sharky agent, our agent, yes, he's like, he's absolutely not. We will not put coupons in the books. And I was like, let them put the coupon in the book.
Yes.
Because I thought the idea of a Dunkin' Donut coupon in Korea, in a book, in a literary book, go for it. I just thought it was so, that's
it's
really
fabulous.
what it's about.
It's fantastic.
I don't know that it's sold.
If you did that here, you would have maybe more policemen would read the book.
Or eat the book. It's really hard to know. Yeah, but I like that, and I also, the truth is, there's nothing more remarkable to open a book, translate it into another language, and look at it and think, I have no idea what it says, and then there's certain things that don't transfer, like the name Jennifer. It'll be completely in the hieroglyphics of another language, and then it just says Jennifer, and I love looking at that too. I find that, I don't know. Hugely comic to me only, probably.
Yeah, well, they're also. I love the way that names also become obsolete.
Well,
I mean, you did the right thing. Your name will never become obsolete because.
I took the lesson actually from it was Andy Warhol who told me to be AM. Yeah, because Andy Warhol talked about Andy Warhol as a brand in the sense that there's a space between whatever AM Holmes is and me, and I always liked that, and it is just this other thing.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So are there people who are grandfathered in who call you Susie or whatever your real name is?
That's the funny joke. Salman, who everyone knows this, calls me Amy. Nobody calls me Amy, but I can't bring myself to tell Salman, nobody calls me Amy. Like, not even my mother.
There are a few people, I'm very much older than you are, there are a few people grandfathered in who can call me Judy.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But they're dying at very quickly.
Yeah.
No, the naming thing is.
No,
really
and it was really, and also I used to put, it's.
But how are you not old enough to have known Andy Warhol?
Yes, he is. Yeah, I studied art history. That was my first sort of love, and I once made this Andy Warhol collage, and he was coming to Washington, where I grew up, Washington D.C. And I brought this enormous collage of like Warhol style thing to show him. I'm like, look, Andy, look what I made. And he took out a marker and he signed it. And I thought that is so weird.
Do you still have it?
I have pieces of it, and I have all these Polaroids of him that he signed of me and Andy and whatever. And it's like,
Questions? Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I have one. Hi. I've just finished this book. It's wonderful. And I found it really compelling that you, as a woman, wrote from the male point of view. Not only that, but it is written in the first person from Harry's point of view. And you kill off Jane, George's wife, early, and then you have Claire, his Harry's Chinese wife, divorce Harry early. So the female characters are really pretty non-existent, whereas the male. I mean, my question is whether you seem to be very facile, very at ease in the male voice, and I just wondered how that comes about, or whether it was difficult at all to talk about that a little bit.
I mean, I think the two things I would say is that for me this was really a book about brothers and about family and about that sort of almost biblical kind of Cain and Abel tug of war. So the women weren't the focus of it, which I'm actually surprised. It won this Women's Literature Prize in England, and I thought, that's amazing, because I killed the woman, and it's all about these brothers. I thought, that's great, because I really didn't expect that.
It's also been called a great American novel, I think, right?
It turns out great American novel just means large American novel. It's not actually a quality thing. But anyway, in terms of the male voice, I think it goes back to, I really am, except for when I'm purposely writing memoir or anything autobiographical, which I actually hate doing. And I was going to read from the memoir, and the truth is, I think it's perfectly fine, but it's excruciating. And I love inhabiting people who are other than myself. To me, there's nothing more uninteresting than writing about a woman who's around my age. I think I am around my age. What's so interesting? It's just
I'm not around my age.
I have a hard time. So I like. And to me, it's also like the greatest compliment when men read the book and they go, "How do you know that?" And I think, and I do a lot of research. It's the research,
including sexual things.
Well, everything. I love it. I mean, what could be more fun? I also did a lot of internet research for the weird internet sex dating thing, and I would just like to say, you cannot make that up. It's all fact-based, whatever's in there.
One more question, and then we're going to. We have so much more.
We have so many callers on the line.
Yes, so many callers are on the line. Elizabeth in Trenton, New Jersey.
Any more questions?
Thank you so much.